Okay, I hope everyone can see that or can see it shortly. Yep, perfect. Okay, so just a couple of things. First off, the agenda for today. So I'll hand over to Ho Yin shortly and he'll talk you through his story and a couple of productivity hacks and management hacks. Then we'll go into the Q&A session. So I think you guys can see on the right-hand side of your screen, there's a little box. You can type in questions here, and you can also vote for the questions that you want to hear the answer to. And then I'll go into the Q&A session and we'll get answers to those burning questions. We'll then break out at about 1 o'clock into the networking sessions. So for those of you who joined a little bit early, you'll have seen that we've got a room of about 15 tables. You just double click onto the table that you'd like to join. There's icebreaker subjects on there, so you can talk about that or talk about something related and meet people. So after about 8 minutes, we'll encourage you to move on so you can get the most out of this session and meet as many people as possible. And then we'll end up at about 1:30. So I believe the room is open till 2. So if you're in the middle of a great discussion, feel free to carry on. But if you need to go, absolutely no problem. So a couple of house rules. Try to focus the conversations on the table topics or something related, because this is all about remote working and we want you to learn as much as possible. Try not to market or promote your company too much. There will be connections that you'll make from this event and potential business opportunities, but we just don't want anyone to feel like they're being sold to. And try to stay unmuted unless you're in a noisy area, just to facilitate conversation. If you have headphones, please try and use them. I think the sound quality will be better. And then if you'd like to connect with anyone, let us know. So it's myself and the Wanted team. There's about 3 others of us who are in the room, or you can let Ho Yin know and we'll connect you after the event. But you can also connect your LinkedIn profile, which I think Ho Yin will take you through in a second. So I will hand over the stage to Ho Yin, and I hope you guys enjoy.
Hey everyone, thank you so much. Can everyone see me? Put in the chat if you guys can see me and hear me okay. And also put in the chat if you can also see my presentation. Perfect, great, excellent. So thank you so much for Kirsten to introducing me, and also thank you to Wanted for letting me speak. I am super excited to talk about remote work. As Kirsten said, I have some experience. I've managed teams up to about 200 people, fully 100% remote teams. I've been doing remote teams for at least 5 years, 5 to 6 years already. I did it when it wasn't really that hot. Right now it's really hot in Europe, in Silicon Valley, in startups. The whole concept of remote working and distributed workforce is like this new trend. And so I'm really excited today to kind of share what are some of the learnings that I have acquired so I can share with you guys. And so I'm gonna just quickly go through it right now. So let me just play this. Let me see if I can, okay. Let me just expand it out. Oh, perfect. So here's my agenda, a little bit about me. I'm gonna talk about some challenges of remote working that most people have. And then 3 is how to find the right people, 4 is set up the right processes, and 5 is how to build the right culture. So led a remote team for 7 years, managed a remote team for up to 200. I built a B2B SaaS business with 0 funding, had 3 successful startups. And most importantly, prior to doing this, I interviewed over 20 companies, basically mostly startups like Zapier, SendGrid, that have been working remotely for literally years. And they've been pioneering the concept of remote working in the tech space. So most of it is office work, like there's no physical component to it. So if you have like people like, truck driver or things that have a physical component, I haven't had too much experience on that, but if you guys have questions, I could potentially connect you with people that do. So I'm just gonna share with you a typical story. when it comes to remote work, there's a lot of frustration. And when you've been doing it as long as I have, there's a lot of frustration about getting, productivity, reliability, getting people to do, making sure that you're communicating with your staff and working together well. It begins to become very frustrating. And I think a lot of people in Hong Kong have either started to feel this frustration or will begin to feel the frustration as the coronavirus takes its toll on the city. And the key question that a lot of people ask me is, why is remote working so hard? And what I see it is that it's pretty much an uphill climb, especially if you've worked with other people physically all your life. And the way how I see it is, the comparison is like comparing playing basketball versus playing soccer. And I was talking to someone here today about, oh, do you watch the NBA? And and also, like, you watch football. And those are two very, very different sports. Playing basketball is like working at an office. It's really close contact. You can yell at each other. You can communicate really well. And the coach can yell at you and say, hey, you gotta do this, do that. But when you play soccer, the pitch is like 4 or 5 times bigger. Everyone's all spread out. You can't really communicate with each other. And the coach just kind of sits there and then just watches and maybe tries to yell at some people, right? And that's the difference. It's two different ways of playing a game. It's the rules are entirely different. And so today I'm going to share with you how you guys play or work remotely with soccer rules, essentially. So here's the 3 areas again: working remotely that fits you, setting up the right processes, and building the right culture. These are 3 of the most key components when it comes to how to work effectively yourself and how to make sure your team and your entire company also works effectively. So here's some simple things when you start working from home. And there's really 4 components: the environment that you're working in, the communication, the work-life balance, and the habits. And I'm going to go through each one of them. So one thing about working from home, which is great in my opinion, is when you work in the office, you kind of have to bend to the office itself. Like, you have to, the office is the office is like a place where, I have to work in this cubicle. I have to I have to be compliant to these type of things. But working from home, you can pretty much create your entire space to adapt to your lifestyle. So what that means is that, for example, I can't work directly at home. I have to go to a co-working space to work because I like to travel. I like to exercise. I found that if I didn't travel to a place, I started to get a lot of aches and a lot of pains because your commute is literally maybe a few steps, maybe 4 or 5 steps to another from your bed to your desk. So find something that works for you. If it's at home, you feel comfortable, great. If there's too much distractions, then maybe you need to find a coffee shop or somewhere else. You need to separate your space between work and your personal life. So the more separate it is, the better. Now, I understand we're in Hong Kong, you don't have a lot of space, but do have a specific desk with your laptop just for that. Don't mix it with personal. If you're hanging out and surfing on the web, don't sit on that desk to surf on the web. Go onto, take your computer and go somewhere else, or maybe even better if you have an iPad, just use your iPad. Make sure you draw a really clear line between your work and your personal. Third is changing scenery. This is something that's really effective. Sometimes working at home, you get cabin fever. And if you don't go out for lunch or you don't kind of balance yourself, you should go to a coffee shop every now and then to change it up. And this makes a huge difference in your productivity and your well-being. Remember to take breaks. It's very often that working remotely, the biggest problem of working remotely, which a lot of people think is, you're working remotely, you are not being productive. In fact, the major problem of working remotely is people work too much, actually. Because when you work remotely, you feel like you have to prove yourself. You have to do more to make sure that you're working. And also it's easier to lose count time and you're just kind of doing your thing. So you need to take breaks. The last one is you need to invest in your office setup. like get a good desk ergonomically. You're sitting in your desk way more because you're not getting up for meetings. You're not standing up and going to a meeting, walking around and having some of that physical moment. You're always sitting down. So get a good chair, get a good mouse, get a good computer with a good webcam, get like a desk that's correctly measured to the appropriate height. Make sure you invest in that because you're sitting there for a long time. So I bought a really, reasonably nice chair that, fits right for my back. So I'm not, arching over all the time. Communication. So in remote startups, we always say communication is oxygen. Communication is oxygen. And the way how we do it is you have to over communicate and you have to communicate deliberately. I'll give you an example. And this is a bit of as a manager, but also as an individual. When we have a meeting together, I will make notes of all the key points that I said, and I'll send it back to them through Slack or through other chat application or email. I send it back to them, hey, here are the things that I said, or here's the things that we talked about, and here's the things that we need to do. And the reason is because you have to document. Because like, it's not like, oh, maybe you and that person talk, and then you in the physical office, you guys can talk, right? Physically. But you may not circle back and like remind each other, oh, remember this thing we talked about, or rehash the same thing over and over again. Sometimes you guys might repeat the same conversation. But an online, there's pretty much not really much opportunity to repeat conversations because everything is so like meeting based. It's like, we got to meet. After we meet, you work. So all of that overhead talking that you're doing when you're just working in space, that's all gone. That talking of that's what we call in remote work, which is hallway conversation or like conversations that happen like not during a meeting, all those in between conversations, 100% eliminated. So you have to communicate deliberately and communicate more. So you got to have a chat application to chat with each other. That is for sure. But for me, the moment that there's like a few back and forth, like I'm saying something and you reply and you don't get what I'm saying, and I try to explain it again and you don't get it, or you're not sure if they get it, I get on a call immediately. Because the amount of time that you go back and forth and then potentially making a mistake is more costly. So might as well just go on a phone call or a video call and go on for like a few minutes and chat with them and then just go. So it's really, really important to be able to just pick up the phone and talk to them. So I use Remo, our virtual office product, to do that. So that we can tap on each other's shoulder, talk to them very easily. So we do that. Third is spend time to chat about nothing. Like sometimes you're and you guys just, there's lots of moments when you're working, you don't talk about anything that's related to work. And so this is a bit like counterintuitive, right? Your managers and everyone are always saying, do work and you shouldn't talk about anything else. Like if I see you talking and chatting, I'll be like, what are you doing? Right? That's typically what managers might feel like. But my motivation is that will happen no matter what, and that's actually healthy for a team. It's just that when you do it too much, then of course your managers might say something. But here's the problem. When you work remotely, all of these casual chats do not happen at all. Like it literally goes down to maybe, I would say 10% of your day to literally 0. And that takes toll over time because you lose a lot of that human connection. You don't know what they're doing. Sometimes you might go out for lunch a lot, and that 1 hour that you spend talking about lunch builds relationships over a long period of time. But now you don't even have that. You don't even have that 1 hour of lunch or this 10% of time that you get to talk about nothing. Talk about, oh, how's your family? Oh, what are you doing this afternoon? That kind of thing. So you need to spend that time. And it's counterintuitive, but you have to do it in order to maintain those connections. Finally is we use a product like Remo Conference to learn and chat. Like we use this. So we create events where people share like this, like exactly what I'm doing. And people come and network. So they learn something, which is good for learning and development. And also you get to network with others and that builds social bonds. So a lot of remote companies use Remo in that way to hit 2 birds with 1 stone using the product that we're in. Habits. So there's a lot of distractions at home. One thing that I've found is really good is you create a to-don't list. Like don't grab a snack, or well, you can't grab a snack, but not all the time, but don't like start looking at the TV, or don't look at Facebook, or don't look at this. So you create a to-don't list, you put it right next to your computer, and you make sure that you don't do those things because those can be distracting. So that's one thing. The second one is work in sprints. So there's something called the Pomodoro technique, which is like you work in 20-minute intervals, and then you take a break, and you work another work in 20-minute intervals. So it's literally like intense work that's undistracted for 20 minutes. You take a little break, like maybe a few minutes to figure out what you do next, and then you do the next sprint of 20 minutes. For example, reply to emails or chat with someone else. So it's all very, very fixed and very targeted and very direct. So the Pomodoro technique actually has a timer. It'll be a 20 minutes clock. You can download this online, down 20 minutes. So you say, you got this time, you got to finish this. Third is work visibly. So you need to show that you're working, but you don't want to do it in a way that overbearing with others, but you want to share it in a way that say, hey guys, I just finished this. Please take a look at this doc that I did. Or you basically need to share. You need to share that this is what you did. You can update your manager saying like, oh, hey, I finished this. You don't have to check this, but just letting you know. That kind of visibility helps a manager feel more confident, because then they feel like, oh, you didn't have to tell me that. Maybe I don't care, but but at least I know what you're doing, and it gives me the confidence that I can trust you further. And that's really, really useful. And it just gives more updates to your manager and to the rest of your team, because the more updates you give, the rest of the team is like, oh wow, everyone's doing work, I should do work too. So it's all kind of this peer kind of, not pressure, but this peer group activity that you guys can do. And you can do that on Slack, you can do that on your chat channel. Working remotely, one of the bad things about working remotely is you get really distracted from all the emails and all the messages, because now everyone is sending messages. No one's meeting in person. And that's right in front of your computer. So you need to use D&D to kind of focus on to focus on certain things and get into deep work. And that's incredibly important. So use D&D wisely, set 30 to 40 or an hour and say, I have to do work in this hour. I must do it. Don't want to be disturbed. And the last one is remove distractions from home. If you have families, you have other people at home, which a lot of people do, you need to state that I'm going to work from this time to this time. I can't be bothered, and you need to remove distractions. If they're TV, they can't use the TV or turn on mute or use their headphones or whatever. You need to make sure that the environment is suited for you. And if the environment is too distracting, you got to leave. You got to go somewhere else and find some other place. Maybe it's not work. Maybe it's a co-working space. Maybe it's a coffee shop. Maybe it's somewhere else that is fit for you, where you can do your most effective deep work. I'm not sure if in the chat, but I will answer the questions later because I can't view my chat. So answer questions on the Q&A, which is on the that side. There's three tabs. There's chat, participants, and Q&A. If you click on chat, there's actually all the different chats that you can chat with others. I forgot to mention this, including the general chat, which everyone's in. There's participants, show the whole list of people that are in the space. So you can check out the LinkedIn profile, you can like check them. And then there's the Q&A. So please ask the questions there, and I'll answer all the questions at the very end. Work-life balance. So obviously, set office hours. It's very easy to work overtime and not know. Make sure you set your office hours and stick to them. Exercise at home. Like a lot of people may not want to exercise outside, or they don't want to go outside. Make sure that you set some time to exercise at home. Get a yoga mat, just exercise at home, do some quick HIIT exercises. I use the Nike training app, which is free. It's really effective. Make sure you exercise because your physical movement now has been reduced by a lot when you work from home. Have a shutdown ritual. And shutdown ritual means like you're shutting down and you're not working anymore. So a shutdown ritual might mean like reviewing what you did today, or clearing out your email, or making sure that you've done all the tasks that you said you were about to do. So making sure you have a shutdown ritual will help you disconnect from your work and go on to your personal life. The worst thing is you don't know when to stop. There's just no clear line, And you can draw that line by having a very clear shutdown ritual that you always do. And you can make it up. You can do whatever it is that makes sense for you. Drawing clear lines between work and personal. That's really the key, and making sure that there's an overlap. Okay, setting up the right processes. So it's in remote working, the thing that what people don't really quite understand is like, or have to get used to, is the expectations. So for me, what I do in my team, and every team is different, I always tell them, you can leave your table, you can leave your desk, right? Leave your desk for even an hour or two. You got to go grab lunch, you got to run an errand, but you have to tell me. You have to stay at, you have to stay it somewhere so that the team and I know. The worst thing is I message you, I email you, and you're not there, you don't respond, and my question is, oh, so where are you? So it's okay to take time. Like you can't expect everyone to be sitting in their butts in their seats all the time, but you have to let people know where you are, what you're doing, and that's really important. So that's the way how I manage my team. Every team is different, but that sets expectations. It's better to set it before rather than people finding out later. Communication etiquette, which means more of like, how do you guys communicate? When do you communicate? When do you call on a phone? When do you talk with Slack? Is it urgent? When can I WhatsApp you? Because now people are using different modes of communication. You have to determine what is what. And I'll explain more about this later. If you're a small team, this might be a good time to start like putting some HR policies around work from home. So you need strong policies now because now it needs to be documented. So it's a good idea to say, look, here's the communication. This is the way what you do it. You can't take like 1 hour break or whatever. You have to tell people. You can make up your time. You can move time around, have flex time if those are the things you want to do. But it all has to be documented, everything. So it's very clear and people can see it. Again, it's documentation. Assigning someone to train new hire, that's just something that if somebody comes, then make sure that someone sticks to them. This is okay. 90-day roadmap is also for new hires, and you share processes and training videos, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. So setting up workflows and processes, if you guys haven't done this, working from home is a good opportunity to do that. The reason is because you have to rely more on processes when you're working remotely, because I don't know, like most of the time people are like, I'll just teach you because you're sitting right next to me. But now you can't do that. It's harder. It's much, much harder to do that. So you have to write down your process better. Codifying your process at this stage might be a good opportunity, especially something that's very, very repeatable, and sharing it on Google Drive so people can see that. You might say, well, why should I do that now? Well, I think it's a good opportunity to do that now because we don't know how long the coronavirus is going to be. Record everything. So Loom is one of my favorite applications in which I record everything. When I'm in a meeting, I record it. When I'm about to train someone, I record it. When I train something about it, I record the entire thing, and then I just give it to the next person that wants to learn it. It's like, hey, do the specific task in how to update social media, blah, blah, blah. So I record it once. And then next time, I don't have to do it again. I just send them the recording, and then they just watch it. So then you're able to scale yourself, and you're able to scale the process. And it also, like, you don't have to copy paste the pictures and like do the step-by-step. You just do it while you're training the person, sharing the screen. So then they just watch your screen. The other good thing is the person who's learning can pause it and then absorb and then play. People don't absorb things on the first try. Like, they're not going to learn what you teach them like on the first round. They need a few times to get it, and recording it is a good way to do that. This is like my favorite growth hack. Yeah. Okay, so I'm running out of time. Here's some best practices, all about transparency. So remote working is all about transparency. So you need to really, really do that. The managers and everyone else also has to communicate more. That's basically kind of like the key item of this slide. Be ultra expressive. You have to be really, really expressive with the way how you chat online. So for Slack, we use GIFs. More, but I think that we don't have enough time. How much time do I have? A few more minutes? Okay, so that's good because I can then host another one at another date. but I'll talk more about the processes, and the next time I'm going to talk more about culture the next time. But I'll now answer some questions right now. So let me just go back here. Okay, so first one, what are the immediate changes we can do that will make the biggest impact to increasing productivity? So one of the biggest things is daily stand-ups for sure, actually, which is the slide I was about to do. You could do daily stand-ups. You need to get a chat application. You need to have a video application. The daily stand-up is like every day you guys talk about all the things that you're about to do. And you typically say a few things. One, what did you do yesterday? Do you have any challenges? And what you're going to do today. And what you did yesterday should also include wins. So it's wins, challenges, and your plan for today. And everyone just spends like literally 30 to 45 seconds just saying it. Boom, 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 boom. And then we just say it, we hear it, we know what we got to do, and we get off and we do our work. That's one. Number two is, I think that's definitely one of the main things to do is definitely having daily stand-ups. How do you manage people that are unmotivated? They're chilling at home, not willing to communicate all the time. You don't even know if they're working. So there's several different layers to do that. So my first technique, what I do is I have a one-on-one conversation with them and I say, hey, looks like you're not doing your work. I need you to do your work. What's your problem? Here's the thing that you need to ask the questions. What's wrong? What's going on? There may be some other reason. Maybe they're unmotivated because they've got their families running around the background. Maybe they're unmotivated because they have a parent or they have another friend or family member that has their TV blaring all the time. You need to figure out, like, maybe they need to work somewhere else. Maybe they need to work at a co-working space. So that's number one. Number two, if they're unwilling to communicate, you have to set an example for everyone on board to communicate. And you have to set that if you don't communicate, then I will have to initiate the next one. The next step is you can install a software on their computer. So the one that I've used is called Desk Time, which basically you install it on your browser and it measures the websites that they surf and the applications that they use. Now that is very invasive. And I only do that when that person is really unresponsive to everything else. So I basically say, look, I don't want to use this, but because I don't know what you're doing and you're not communicating, it's very difficult for me to understand what's going on. Let's try this for like 2 weeks, see how it goes. And if you don't like it or whatever or not, we can change it. You can also turn it off when you have lunch, and you can turn it back on when you're working again. But it tracks like what websites that they're going to. Very invasive. Don't recommend it, but it's like really like the last straw. How do you encourage a remote team to over communicate when they're not used to? I would definitely say this is a challenge because they're not used to doing that. And if they're not used to doing that, this is a big behavior change for them. And it's not for everyone. To over communicate, what we have done with members that don't over communicate well is need to show an example by managers what over communication means. And then you have to teach them what over communication means. And saying that over communication means you communicate when you have finished this, or you communicate for expectation setting when you're going away, or you communicate that. So it's saying that you need to work with me and communicate with me more. And you have to drill them in their heads every daily stand-up. They're just saying, you gotta communicate. So it's difficult. I have to admit, it's difficult. But for this type of culture change, the best way is repetitive and showing cases that people have done well and highlighting that during the daily stand-up. If you commit to that, they will eventually change. They'll eventually change. I can share my screen at the bottom, and I can share this at the bottom. So some other so this is the remote team tool stack. So definitely Zapier is good. Well, Zapier is not that good for that, but more like Slack. You can use is good for managing teams. Google Hangouts, obviously. Toggle Desk Time for productivity tracking. Using QuickTime, even Mac has QuickTime. You can use that to record. Asana is good. Basecamp is good for managing people's projects and tasks. and Remo, of course. And I can share some more tools on the next go around as well. Okay, how often should remote teams meet each week, and how should we structure the meetings to make them productive? So, so small teams that directly work with each other meet every day. You can have, let me just move back to my meeting cadences here that I recommend. So ideally, at the beginning, I would do daily stand-ups for teams that are working very, very closely together. If everyone works kind of on their own and everyone does their own thing, you might be able to get away with like two or maybe three for that. For people that are like very mature, they've worked well, and they know exactly what they need to do, maybe. I have weekly all staff meetings, all hand meetings, so to kind of talk about what's going on and everything. So with that, all the daily stand-ups are literally like half an hour. Like they should not be longer than half an hour. The weekly meetings, or two to three times, could be an hour, but it depends. It depends on that person and how tightly you're collaborating with them. If you're tightly collaborating with them, then obviously you need more. If you're not, then they can pretty much do their own thing, and you can just do one or two. I also have 30-minute check-ins with individuals to check in with them, to talk about non-work. I try to talk about non-work, and it's just to ask them like, how's everything going? And you can do these during either one every week or one every other week, where you just ask them, how's everything going? How's remote work going for you? And just making sure that you're kind of in touch with them. If you're hybrid, meaning that or partial remote, meaning you come to the office sometimes, that's okay. Then you can do that check-in when they're in the office with them, just to make sure that they're okay and that they're managing the remote work well, because you don't have that opportunity to check in with them when they're physically in the office, and you don't see them. You can't see if they're like hunched on the desk and struggling with something. You don't see that. So having in remotely is very helpful, because you then get to know what's on their mind. Before, you might be able to observe it in a meeting, but now you might not be able to observe it. And remote work can sometimes wear down on a person, and you need to catch it early. If they're being worn down, you can give them advice on how to improve it, how to improve the situation. Okay, that's it for me so far. And then I think I'm going to hand back to Kirsten.